This is the Be the Solution podcast, and I'm Maria Quattrone. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you Kelly Cochran. Kelly is affectionately known as the Loud Blonde by her friends and fans. She's a professional motivator who shares her message of female self-empowerment on stages all across the country. Before diving headfirst into entrepreneurship, Kelly spent 20 years in leading product and marketing teams in corporate America. After being fired a record 4 times for challenging the status quo, Kelly finally decided to ditch the cubicle life for good in 2017. She's the winner of the Top 20 on the Rise Award for Marketing and Named a Female Trailblazer by SD Voyager magazine. She is the outspoken female voice this generation has been waiting for. And her debut book, Loud Silence Your Critics and Turn Up the Volume in Your Life, right here, launched as a #1 Amazon bestseller in September 2019. Kelly loves to work with driven type A women who are tired of playing small and living life below their potential. Her high-end performance coaching powerfully moves her clients out of their comfort zones and into inspired action. I am so excited to welcome Kelly to the Solution podcast. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Maria. Hello, everyone.
Oh, it's so great to see you.
It's
And
great to
meet
see
you in
you
person.
too. I know.
Yes. So we have a mutual friend, Michelle, who introduced us. And she said, I said, Michelle, who do you know who'd be great interview for the podcast Be the Solution? And she said, oh, let me think. She's like, Kelly, the Loud Blonde. And here we are.
Here we are. That is my nickname, the Loud Blonde.
So got the book, everybody. This is Kelly's book. Don't you love that picture?
My lipstick matches the book right now for everybody watching on camera.
It does. There's the book for those who are seeing it. So I have to ask you a question about being a #1 Amazon bestseller. What has it done to change your mindset about yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it gave me the confidence that what I wrote actually meant something. I actually have a funny story about when I decided to write a book, I met with this book coach, Azul Tarones, who is Pat Flynn's book coach. If you've ever heard of Pat Flynn, he's a big podcaster. He wrote Will It Fly? And so I met with Azul and he's like, okay, well, what kind of book do you want to write? And I was like, oh, well, I've been in marketing for, at this point, it was like 15 years. And I was like, I guess I want to write a marketing book. And he was kind of like, oh, okay. And he goes, well, tell me a little bit about who you are. And I just went off because I had just gotten fired for my 3rd time from corporate America. And I was so tired of hitting my head on a glass ceiling, of getting in trouble for standing up for my team. I was so tired of being the loud, outspoken female who was getting cut down in corporate America. And so I got on my soapbox, went off on all of that. And I was like, yeah, I'm just always so tired of being loud. And he goes, okay, well, do you want to be known at the end of your life as Kelly the marketer? Or do you want to be known as Kelly, the loud blonde who leads this movement of loud women behind you? And I said, that. And he goes, okay, that's the book you write. And here we go. So yeah, launching as a #1 bestseller, I was like, all right, that was the book I was supposed to write.
And there you have it. And that's a wrap, folks. No, just kidding. So writing a book is, a lot of people aspire to write a book, Kelly. What's some advice that you would give to women listening to this, or men, about writing a book and how it unfolds and like what happens to you when you're actually going through the process of actually physically doing it?
So I would say if you're thinking about writing a book, first of all, just do it. That's always easier said than done, though, right? Just sit down and write a book, no problem. I mean, it took me 10 months of concerted effort to get this book out of me. A couple tips that my book coach gave me that really helped was instead of thinking I was going to write, like sit and write for an hour, it was write for 8 minutes, just 8 minutes a day. You can do anything for 8 minutes, except maybe like a plank, but I can do most things for 8 minutes. And so he said, just set a timer, sit down and write for 8 minutes. And pretty soon the creative juices will be flowing. And you'd be surprised how many times you would write for well over 8 minutes. But sometimes if you have writer's block, you're just stuck, you don't know what you're writing. 8 minutes is going to feel like a lifetime. And then as soon as the timer goes off, you can stand up, go about your day. You've completed that day. So that was a huge help to me to avoid writer's block. Just write 8 minutes a day. Another tip that I would give is write what you can't stop thinking about. Like, what is the idea that's keeping you up at night? Write about that. Marketing wasn't keeping me up at night. Like thinking about SEO and Google ads and things. That doesn't keep me up at night. The ideas that keep me up at night are things like thinking about what are like wild, cool things women are doing that is outside a 9 to 5. That kind of stuff keeps me up at night. And that's actually where I'm taking my career next, is I'm going to be highlighting a bunch of women doing just extraordinary, louder things than just like staying in this corporate box. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night. And so that's the book I wrote, was all these ideas that were just wouldn't get out of my brain. And that book is going to be a lot easier to write because then you become kind of a channel for those ideas and they just naturally flow out, versus trying to write what you think everybody else wants to read or what you think is going to sell. Because ultimately you'll attract the people who need your message to your book. So regardless of what you write, there is an audience for your book.
All about authenticity. It goes back to authenticity. And if we're not authentic to who we are and what our belief is and desire and passion inside, then we're not going to connect with the right people, and the right people aren't going to connect with us. And then kind of defeats the whole purpose of doing it. But I would think that many people probably do that too.
Yeah. Well, so when I got fired from my job in 2017, I was like, okay, I'll start this website, Kelly Knows SEO, because that's what I had been doing, was search engine optimization and marketing. And it was so not aligned with who I am. But this idea for calling myself Loud Blonde, because it had always been kind of this nickname. I'd always been known as like the loud girl. I've always had long blonde hair. Like, I'm in your face. I tell it like it is. I was like, I can't name my brand Loud Blonde. No one will take me seriously. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, the people who won't take me seriously and won't hire me aren't the people I want to work with. The people who will align with that brand are exactly the women I want to attract and want to work with. And sure enough, as soon as I locked in on that and got really aligned and owned that brand, I will walk in any room, any conference, and people will go, oh my God, it's Loud Blonde. I want to talk to you. I read your book. I heard you on this podcast. I saw you on this stage, because they are so aligned with my authentic self, instead of trying to fit in this box, to be Miss Prim and Proper for corporate America or whatever box I was trying to fit in. Once I got aligned with who my authentic self is, boom, you just magnetize all of those right people to you.
Well, you certainly do that. I mean, there's something about really being who you are. And I think it takes sometimes a lifetime to figure that out. There's some ways that people can figure that out, because I think people a lot of times, especially, we're just going in a circle. Women are going in a circle. Should I do this? There's so many things coming at us. How do you like silence the brain?
Well, my mom hates when I tell this story. I don't think it's your own inner voice that people are trying to silence. It's your external critics that you're hearing. So every time I would get let go from a corporate job, I would hear my mom's voice in my head, because my mom, God bless her, RN for 40 years. My dad was a lawyer for 45 at one law firm and at one hospital. Actually, my mom was at two. but in 40 years. And I
I
couldn't
saw that
count
in the
on two
book.
hands how many jobs I've had up until this point, right? And so I think the voice in your head that's telling you, you can't do this, play smaller, play by the rules, that's not your own inner voice. That's your external critic's voice. So what you have to get really good at is silencing that, turning down the volume. And that's, the subtitle of my book is Silence Your Critics and Turn Up the Volume on Your Life. Once you stop listening to all the chatter around you and you listen to only what's in here and turn up the volume so loud on your inner intuition, you won't even hear that. That's just background noise. That just fades away. But I really think it's your inner critic. I mean, your
Do you
external
think
critic.
people do that? Do you think people think about their external critics? Like, you think a lot of people think about it?
No, I think people who've gone to therapy do because they can name their external critics with a therapist. But I think if you're not doing a lot of inner work, you don't realize that a lot of those voices aren't your own voice. They're, and here's the deal. And I talk about this in my book too, is, your parents' job as a parent is to keep you safe. Well, safety looks like something different for a lot of people. I am not risk averse at all. Like I am a big risk taker. I love I do some crazy stuff that more conservative people would think is nuts. Maria, before we got on this call, we talked a little bit about my ayahuasca trip. That is something that probably 95% of the population wouldn't willingly go to a foreign country and take ayahuasca. But I'm someone who I'm always 0.9.
99.9%.
But I'm someone who's always looking to push the boundaries of my knowledge, of my education, of my life experience. I feel like I'm only here once. I got to get the most juice out of the squeeze, right?
So what did you get out of that? What's the juice you got out of that squeeze?
Out
What
of
was revealed
ayahuasca.
to you? Yes, what was revealed to you?
So, oh my gosh, that we could have another 4-hour conversation on that. In a nutshell, ayahuasca really lets you heal a lot of deep trauma, childhood wounds. It really helps you get aligned. I really felt under the medicine like I had a lot of just emotional baggage I was carrying kind of purged out of me. And then I was stitched up. So I am just my authentic self and I'm not carrying anybody else's baggage anymore. I'd say in a nutshell, that's really what I got out of it, which is pretty cool. I mean, decades of just emotional baggage I was carrying for other people. And I'm like, oh, I don't need that anymore. I don't need to carry that for you. I don't need to carry your fear. I don't need to carry your money issues. I don't need to carry this breakup. I don't need to carry any of this anymore. And so now it's just me, which is awesome. Highly recommend.
Wow. What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to try it, but they were like petrified of it? Wink, wink.
I mean, I think I would ask, what are you scared of?
Lack of control.
Totally. I was right there with you. I have never done drugs, ever. Nothing. Alcohol, yes, that's the only thing. Weed a couple times. But like nothing, everyone's like, well, you've done psilocybin, right? You've done mushrooms. I was like, oh no, I've never done any of that. And they go, wow, you really go 0 to 100, don't you? And I was like, yeah, it's kind of my personality. I think going to a space where that's all very regulated. So I went to a place called Rhythmia, where they have highly trained shaman. They have light workers, which are the helpers that are in the Maloka with you, which is the big lodge. There's medical staff, there's paramedics on site while you're under the medicine. They make it so safe that they create psychological safety the minute you step on campus. You're on a campus for the entire week with the same instructors, and you're getting a lot of teaching throughout the week before you go into your ceremonies at night. So you feel so well taken care of by everyone there that all the anxiety, by the time I went into the first ceremony, all my anxiety was gone because I so trusted the practitioners of it. So yeah, I would say go somewhere like that versus into the jungle with some random shaman, which people do, but they're
Okay.
crazy.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and that makes me feel a lot better about that.
Well, good. I'm happy to
I didn't
answer any
realize.
more questions.
I really didn't. I only heard about the other. I didn't hear about, the medical paramedics and all that on staff. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really treat
So
it like it's a spa vacation and you just happen to be doing ayahuasca, but you're also learning a lot of mindfulness during the day too. But yeah, the amount of staff and medical people around to make sure that you're okay is top notch at Rhythmia. Highly, highly
mm,
recommend.
mm, mm. Well, that will go to the bucket list. That will go to the bucket list. So the book is the board of which you've launched your coaching business.
Right.
And so let's talk about that and what that looks like and what kind of work do you do with people?
I
Women.
really, yeah, I really like to work with, I mean, women like me, women who are type A, who probably came from corporate America. I've worked with a lot of ex doctors, ex lawyers, ex, VP directors who want something more out of life than just like climbing this corporate ladder. And it's working with them to figure out what that looks like. What is your actual passion and purpose in life? If you feel like you're not living it, which I feel like so many women and men right now in this world aren't. We were told you can go do and be anything that you want, yet can you? You're still expected to like climb this corporate ladder and, you go from a low level employee to a manager to a director to a VP to a president, but it's like all these steps that you're supposed to take, but is that really making anybody feel excited about their life? I feel like so many people are just living the 9 to 5 to get to the weekend, to pay for their weekend. And then you only have 2 days where you're actually living the life you want to live. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. That's miserable. Spending only 2 out of 7 days doing what you actually want to do. And then half of Sunday, you just have anxiety going into Monday morning. So that's really
All
what
this
I help women do is figure out what your
Get rid of the
passion and
scary
purpose is.
Sundays.
Yes, Sunday scaries. Absolutely. It's real. So yeah, it's figuring out how to make money off of something that you already love to do.
Your life's work.
My life's work, man.
Your life's work. Finding I think that's the thing. I think most people have been unable to find their purpose.
Absolutely.
And spending time is like think. It's like you can't think when you're always doing.
Oh my gosh, that is such a thing right now too in society. I have a couple friends who just overschedule themselves. And I always find when somebody's excuse is I'm too busy to do anything, name it. If it's something they love to do, if it's something they hate to do. It's like this way of protecting your subconscious of going deeper is when you're always busy, then you don't have time to actually sit and think. And some of my best ideas have come out of times when I literally have nothing to do. It's like when I've in between corporate jobs. That's when the whole idea for Loud Blonde in my book came out, was because I was in this couple month period where I was unemployed, kind of sank into a deep depression, but I just kind of sat with it and went, okay, what's going to come out of this? And I just let myself get really quiet. And when you let yourself get really quiet, you literally become a channel. And it is unbelievable the stuff that's coming out of it. Like I have a new podcast I'm going to start soon that just came out of, I just took a red eye flight and I couldn't sleep on the flight. And I was just quiet, wasn't listening to music, was just sitting there with my eyes closed. And I just downloaded this whole idea for a brand new podcast. And I was like, that's what I needed. Thank you. It's awesome. But you have to get
It's
quiet
awesome.
to get those downloads.
I call it the magic happens when nothing's happening.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
So speaking of that, what's the new podcast about and what's it called?
So this was an idea I had back when I launched my book. So I launched my book as a bestseller in September 2019. And then I had an entire year of speaking engagements all over the country, an international retreat to lead, all of that on my calendar. And we all know what happened in March 2020. So I went from making a lot of money and having a ton of coaching clients and a ton of speaking engagements overnight to having nothing on my calendar, no coaching clients. It was wild. So I never launched my podcast, and I'm really sad I didn't back then. So I'm gonna do it again. And I've just honed in on what that idea is. And it's going to be called Louder. And it's just going to be interviewing women who are doing really extraordinary things in life. And so, for example, I have a friend of mine who runs a crime scene cleanup business that she got into after being a police officer in Kansas City. And she realized that she didn't know who did the crime scene cleanup after one of the victims' moms asked her who was going to come back and clean it up. And she said, well, we don't, we're the cops. So she figured it out. She found someone in Texas doing it, called him and said, hey, I would love to fly out and shadow you for a week and then start my own business in Florida. And he's like, that'd be great. She shadowed him for a week. She started her own business. She now owns franchises all over Florida. And then she started flipping houses from that business. So it's just, I really want to highlight women doing things so outside the box to show other women, and especially to show younger women, how many opportunities there are for us to make money that doesn't involve working for someone else.
I love that. That's such a cool idea. Who cleans up the crime scene?
I know, isn't that wild? It's something you'd never think of until you had to.
Nope. I definitely it's not come across my radar, Kelly.
See, there you go. So that's going to be one of my episodes. Laura doesn't know it yet, but she might be my first interview.
I love it. Can't wait to hear her story.
Yeah, it's
So-
awesome. It's pretty wild.
I loved in your book how every chapter you had a quote. And I'm going to read this one because this is, I think it means a lot to a lot of women. You're not taking it anymore. Sit down, shut up, you're done talking. Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is a big one. Out of all of the quotes, I think that one is one that, I don't think it's talked about a lot. We get to decide if we're going to allow ourselves to feel inferior, yet we have past. We all have a past, and there's things that happened in our past that make us feel inferior for a variety of reasons. And yet, even some of the most successful, very successful women entrepreneurs still struggle with this.
Oh, yeah. So common.
And that's where that other problem comes from. The other problem is the I'm a fraud and imposter syndrome. I think they're married together, both of these things.
Absolutely.
I think imposter syndrome comes from the inferiority.
Absolutely. I mean, what I've found is you need proof. Meaning, and I actually learned this from a former coach. I had a sales coach back in the day, and he was asking me how much I had ever made at a job. And at the time, I said $98,000. And he goes, that's interesting. Why haven't you ever broken six figures? And I really sat with that question because I was like, well, because these people didn't pay me six figures. No, it was a me issue. I realized that in my experience, the only people I growing up saw making six figures were male doctors and lawyers. I never saw a woman make six figures. So I had no concept of how I would make six figures if I had never seen it before. So that was a huge inferiority complex for me. So even when I got that job that paid me $98,000, I was stoked. I had asked for more. They started at 80. I got them up to 98, but I never got them to 100 because I didn't have that belief system inside of me that I could make that much. So I think a good way to get over not having proof is finding a group of women who's doing what you want to do. And it has to be, if you are a female, it has to be women, because there's something about seeing you projected out from someone else, whether it's on stage. So go to conferences, watch webinars, listen to podcasts of women doing what you want to do, and learn their numbers too. I'm such a proponent. On my newest podcast, I'm gonna talk numbers. I think talking numbers is so important because women don't know what other women make. And so you never know what's possible if it's still this hush hush secret. And thankfully, there's been laws passed now that, you know, people can't ask you what you made in a past job. They have to have more transparency in what they're paying so you can, you know, bridge that gender gap. But also, there's not even a gender gap between us and what men are making. It's what are the other women making around you? Do you know? You should know, because otherwise, how do you know what you're shooting for? You know, for example, you're a realtor. Do you know what the other women in your office are making? Because maybe they're, you know, what's the number one person selling in your office and bringing in commission? You need to know those numbers so you can see that it's possible for you. Because if you don't have any proof, you're never going to see that for yourself. And that's what I try and do for people too. I try and be really transparent about things like that. I was just listening to a Mel Robbins podcast the other day that was so good. She was talking about how a friend of hers was an interior designer with years of experience. Well, some lady down the street decides she's going to be an interior designer. No training. She just starts posting on TikTok every day about interior design stuff. And it just tweaked this woman so bad that this other woman with no experience was getting all these followers, da, 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 da. Well, she was doing the work, and that woman didn't have an inferiority complex that she hadn't gone to school for it. She didn't have clients yet. Somehow that woman saw the other woman succeeding who did have all those things and went, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. And it just pissed off this woman who had all the experience. So for me, I'm just like, go out and find an example of who you want to be, because if she can do it, you can do it. She's not smarter than you. She might have more years on you, but you know.
Yeah, I call it borrowed belief. Borrowed
The what?
belief from somebody who's borrowed belief.
Oh, borrowed belief. Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
I talked to the agents in my company about that. I said they get the borrowed belief from me. They can
Yeah,
do it.
exactly.
I've done it. They can do it.
Well, and that's why you always want to mentor. Yeah, that's why you want to mentor too, or get in a mastermind of people who are doing way bigger things than you. You know, right now I'm in this mastermind called Go Abundance Women, and it's women doing 10 times the volume of anything that I'm doing. Perfect. Awesome. I want to be the lowest earner in the room, because if I'm the highest earner in the room, who am I learning
You're
from?
in the wrong room.
I'm in the wrong room. I'm in the wrong. 100%. You never want to be the smartest or highest earner in the room.
That's
ever.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you know, people say, well, why would you be in that room? Don't you feel inferior? Because I'm in a real estate mastermind where, you know, my contemporaries, some of them, they close their companies close $1 billion a year in sales, you know, and
Wow.
they have a lot of people, and they do a lot of business. And people say, well, but I don't feel like they're better than me. I just feel like that's, you know, that is their path they took, and I have my path that I'm taking. You know, if I want, do I aspire to do $1 billion a year in real estate? I don't know. Maybe not.
Well,
Maybe
and you
there's
know
some
how
other
much,
path.
and you know how much work that takes and how many people you need on your team to hit $1 billion.
Correct. And there's profit margins are much smaller. So we always talk about number. When I think that's the other thing. Nobody talks about profit.
Yeah.
You know, nobody
It's like,
talks
oh,
about
that was your gross. Oh, but you didn't account for all the people you're paying out, all their commissions, all your assistants, title clerks, blah, 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 blah. It's like, what was your actual number in the end?
I mean, and it also is like, what are you? And so I always like to say this, it's like not about, At the end of the day, from a financial standpoint, it's about how much you keep and how much, from a financial, how much you keep, how much you invest smartly,
Exactly.
and then how much you can contribute back to humanity, back to the field you're in, back to people, because there's no amount of money that contribution can replace. Money
Oh,
can
I love that.
replace.
That's beautiful.
People always ask me about the podcast. Do you make money from this? Do you get clients from this? And I never really answer specifically because I don't know if I do or not. I really don't. What I do know is the person that I've become from doing recording, interviewing 210 people, year 211, learning to listen to you, ask questions based on what I heard. But that transcends around everything in life. Become a
Right.
better communicator. That's the training. It's the work. It's the process of it, not what the outcome of this. Everyone thinks like, are you getting a lead? I'm like, that's not about that. There's so much more to it.
I
So
agree.
much more. I wish people could look at things like a little differently than, do you make money off of that? And I get the question often. And someday I'm going to come up with a better answer, but this is my truth. This is my authentic answer about it.
You get
I
paid
do
in
this to learn
connection.
about people.
Exactly.
I do s- to learn about people, to highlight, who you are. What is it that you're doing? I love it. The loud blonde. She's recognizable from across the room. They hear her before they see her. And
I
she
just
has such a beautiful smile and a beautiful face.
thank you. I just
You're welcome.
saw an Instagram meme the other day that made me laugh so hard. It was walk into the room like you're someone's worst nightmare. That made me laugh so hard. And I was like, I wish we all had the confidence to like walk into a room of people we don't know like that. Just like walk in like you are like the villain in somebody's story. And I was like, oh, I love the confidence that portrayed. That made me laugh really hard.
I love that. That's great. I love the one that says, "Oh my God." It's like something like, "Oh my God, she's up." It's like the devil. Like, did you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a great one. It's like the devil's hiding from you.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. It's, with life, and we all have to do some kind of work to earn our living, but the more people that can find their passion and, belief, something you said earlier about belief, find somebody else that did it, and you only will do what you believe you can do. And so I asked a question years ago in my organization to a group of salespeople, and we had an ISA department at the time. And the ISAs, the inside sales associates, were setting appointments for the real estate agents. And I went around, and the agents weren't keeping the appointments with the buyers or the sellers. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then I asked questions, and I went around the room and I asked everybody, Kelly, I said, how many transactions do you think you can do a month? And I said, Andrew, how many can you? Lisa, how many? And everybody gave an answer: 2, 5, 7. And what I recognized was, if you said you could do X, whatever that number was, anything more than that, you would never do because you didn't have the belief that you actually could do it. So if I handed you business on a gold platter right in front of your face, you'd find a way to fuck it up.
Unbelievable. Totally.
That's what they did. And that is what they did. So the opportunity could be right in front of you. But if you don't believe that you can do it and that you're worthy of it, and these are personal development issues that need to be further developed, then you won't accomplish that, even if it's given to you. And we do that with self-sabotage all the time.
Oh, self-sabotage is such a thing. Absolutely. If you feel internally you don't deserve something, you will do anything to self-sabotage it. Just talk to my last few ex-boyfriends.
There you go.
At least I can laugh about it now.
Laughing is always a good thing. Very therapeutic.
Very therapeutic. Exactly.
Very, very. I think that, you're looking at, I think a lot of people are tiptoe around things too. They're afraid to offend others. They're afraid to be loud. They're afraid to speak their truth.
Right. I think a part of that too stems from, I mean, well, it's multifaceted, but I think a part of it is that females are taught to be polite, to be quiet, be demure, be polite. And another part of it is way deeper than that, is an animalistic instinct that we don't want to be culled from the herd. And so that's why we won't speak up. That's why we won't speak our truth. You just kind of nod and go along with whatever the status quo is, because you don't want to be cut off from the group dynamic, because inherently we are ingrained to know that that's danger. Like, I can't survive on my own as a herd animal. And so it's crazy how deeply instinctual that is, and how much it takes to break that habit of going, I don't care if I'm cut off from this herd. If I believe that this is not the right thing, I've done this in jobs before where I'm like, this VP is being creepy to all the women on my team. I'm going to HR about it. I'm going to stick my head out for this. This is what I believe is right. Where the rest of the women put their heads down,
And they didn't care. You went there and they didn't care, per your book.
Yeah. Yep.
They didn't care. And you couldn't believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you were, they didn't. Yeah, that's disheartening for sure. I think,
but it's so common too. There's so few people willing to stand up for doing what's right, for going against the grain, for going against the status quo. It's tough. So you have to decide: am I more uncomfortable going with the flow, or is it going to be more uncomfortable staying quiet? I have a very hard time staying quiet. No surprise.
No surprise. I think it's the theory of the crab in the bucket. Did you ever see a crab escape the crab bucket?
Oh,
the crab's almost out. He's crawling up. He's almost out. And then what happens? The crab pulls him down. The other crabs pull him down.
Don't go out there. It's dangerous.
Yeah, everybody wants all the crabs and all the people to stay together.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see the masses of people together. They all have a lot of friends. They all do whatever. But then people that go against the grain, they're probably a small handful of friends, like real friends, Anyway,
right.
That's what I've seen. I'm not saying not acquaintances.
It's interesting, when you do that, you're going to lose some friends, but then you'll gain the friends who believe in what you're doing too. I have so many different friends throughout this journey of really leaning into my book and leaning into my authentic self. Then, I've made incredible friends, like multi-millionaire friends that I never knew that I would have connections to. All people all over the world that are friends, people I met in Costa Rica doing ayahuasca that were great friends that I'm going to go visit on a road trip in a month. I mean, so it opens you up to a whole new set of people who are just on a different wavelength than the masses, which I think is awesome.
It is awesome when you put yourself out there, though. I think it takes time once you escape from the masses to recenter, restart, and put yourself out there and be open to and not afraid and not feel like you're judged.
Totally. But then again, that goes into the inferiority conversation, that we had earlier is, yeah, it puts you out there. So you have to have a really strong sense of self to go, no, I deserve this life that I'm choosing for myself. And I'm not going to let those external, chitter chatter, your mom's voice in your ear going, you'll never make it doing that. You just got to say, shh, I know you're trying to keep me safe, but my internal voice is louder and stronger.
It takes a lot of work to get to that.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe not for everybody, but.
And God bless them. It's taken me years of work.
I'm still working. I'm
yeah,
a work in progress.
Exactly.
As I say, progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Right. I'm like a woman of all kinds of sayings. I say all the time, different things, but I don't know.
I love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. I have my favorite one is work works. But
that's true. That'll, know, and that with imposter syndrome and stuff too, I always feel like action helps. So just getting out there and doing something, like this, being on this podcast, instant confidence boost, posting to, a reel or something to Instagram or TikTok, like just put yourself out there. Because sitting in your head, I had a Mary Kay director back in the day who said, get out of your head. It's a dangerous place. And I've always remembered that. Get out of your head. It's a dangerous place. Don't sit and spin. Don't sit and spin in your head. Get out, go do something, take action, go exercise, go on a walk, go chat with the neighbor, do something to get out of your head.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Our what's between here and here is the most important real estate that we own, and it's the most dangerous. Because we can tell stories like, oh, wow. Everybody should be writing a book about the stories they tell themselves that happen.
Oh, that's a great book title. See, the marketer brain's always going. I'm like, ooh, the stories we tell ourselves.
The stories we tell ourselves. There we go. Okay. Kelly, before we wrap it up today, guilty pleasure.
Ooh, guilty pleasure. I mean, I don't know if this is a guilty pleasure, but I've been really into golf lately. I play golf anytime that I can. So I literally played golf right before this podcast. That's my new guilty pleasure, playing golf all the time.
Okay. We'll take that.
I mean, chocolate's too easy of an answer.
Well, some people use that, but we'll take the golf. Take the golf going around. Very hot for golfing now. I don't know.
Oh, it was hot out there this morning for sure. Yeah, it was very hot.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What are you most excited about for your personal future? Like you're ready. You're going.
Oh, I love that. That's easy right now. So I'm most excited about this new podcast I'm going to start. And then I really want to turn it into like a YouTube TV show that features all these women doing really creative, cool jobs or just wild stuff. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. So stay tuned, everybody.
I love it. That's fabulous. So we'll be on the lookout. And I did that with the ear for the new podcast that'll be being launched. When are you launching it? Fall?
This fall. Yep. I'm in Europe most of September, so probably October.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear about that, Kelly. And you have been amazing. Thank you for being an amazing guest on the Be the Solution podcast. And everybody make sure that you go and get Kelly's book and silence your critics and turn up the volume on your life. And Kelly, what's your Instagram?
It is At Loud Blonde. Everything is Loud Blonde. Loudblonde.com and Instagram Loud Blonde.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.